Lesson 11.3. The numbers are back. Data distributions. Okay. A lot of this stuff is familiar, maybe with a new twist on it. There is some new stuff in here though too. Okay. So in this lesson, we start off talking about measures of center and spread. Measures of center, you know. You've been doing these since probably elementary. When you're trying to find the center of data, what are our measures of center? Mean, median, mode, right? The three M's that go together, okay? So those find your center of the data, okay? And we're going to talk about all three of those in various ways, shapes, and form. When we talk about spread, that brings in standard deviation and range and interquartile range. So like ways to talk about how spread out the data is, okay? That's probably the newer aspect of this. So the mean or average of a data set is the sum of the values in the data set divided by the number of values in the data set. Old news. New news. Mean is commonly expressed using X with a little bar over it, which is read as X bar. Okay, so this is more of a statistical chapter. Okay, they're going to give you some statistic notes type here. Okay, in a statistics course, the mean would be represented as X bar. So that's just one to become familiar with. I think you might even see it in Savas a little bit. I can't remember for sure, but X bar. Realize that is your mean or your average. Okay. Then we're also going to talk about standard deviation. Standard deviation is a measure of how much the values in a data set vary or deviate from the mean. It's a measure of the variability or spread of the data. We will use technology to find standard deviation. I focus on teaching Excel, but I will also try and show it to you on the calculator at some point. It's one of those things every scientific calculator is going to do. Every scientific calculator is going to be a little bit different, though. And it's not the easiest thing to do on the calculator. So, standard deviation is commonly expressed using sigma. Looks like a little lowercase o, but it's the lowercase sigma. Okay? So we're going to talk about mean. We're going to talk about standard deviation. We're also going to talk about something called a 5-number summary. And I don't know if you guys remember doing box and whisker plots for middle school. I don't know. My morning class seemed pretty non-remembering also, but Miss Lorch was in here and she says she's been in Miss Basham's class when she's taught it. So you very possibly may have seen box and whisker plots somewhere along the line. I'll explain it today, but the 5-number summary is what a box and whisker plot is made up of. So there's 5 numbers. You need to know the minimum value, the maximum value. Those are 2 of your 5 numbers. Okay? You need to know the median. So we'll review finding the median. And then you also need to know the first and third quartiles, which median, if you recall, is the middle number, right? Well, the first quartile is the middle of the lower half of the data. So first quartile, or if you hear me slip up and say lower quartile, some books refer to it as lower quartile. And then the third quartile is the middle of the upper half of the data. So it's the median of the upper half. And so third quartile, or if you hear me say upper quartile, it's the quartile of the upper half. Okay, now, you have your list of definitions here, right? If you forget what something is. We got all that. We're going to use all of it. On this first example, we're being asked to find the mean, the standard deviation, and the 5-number summary. And if I recall correctly, the first 3 problems in homework are this way. Okay, so we're going to practice.
What is the 5-number summary?
Next time, listen while you sharpen your pencil. You'll find out. Okay, so what are the mean, standard deviation, 5-number summary? Let's start with mean. What are we going to do? Okay, add them all together, divide by how many? You were asked to have a calculator at your desk, yes? And here's the deal, guys. I'm going to tell you, you guys are going to learn this stuff better if you are participating, not just staring at the board waiting for everyone else to do the work for you. Participate. Okay, so go ahead and work on getting that. I'm just going to write a little on top. You're doing the sum, of the numbers. And you're dividing it by the amount of the numbers. Now, when I put this on the board, I am going to want to know what two numbers we're dividing there, just so you know. What are they adding up to be?
186.
Okay, they are adding up to be 186. What are you dividing by?
16.
There are 16 numbers.
So it gets 11.63 or 625.
Give me the whole thing. Okay. If your fingers didn't betray you, you should be getting 11.625. Okay. Or you can blame it on the calculator, whatever. Officially, it's the user of the calculator that would have messed this one up, but okay. So mean is 11.625, or what I'm going to say is X bar is 11.625. Okay. Easy enough, right? Well, now let's talk about standard deviation. Now, as I said, technically there is a formula out there. It's been years since I've used it. I don't really remember what it is, but this book doesn't teach that way. They say, we're going to use technology, and that's fine with me. So, grab the iPads. Head into Excel, please.
Is that the green one?
That is the green one. The green, is it an E or an X?
E. It's X. It's X? Oh, I think it's an E.
It used to be an E, now it's X.
I say, I honestly don't know. It's the green one. Let's go back to that.
That's literally the this is like.
Okay. So, get in there. You're going to want to open a new spreadsheet. So a new blank chart.
I'm not.
Focus.
I knew somebody was going to do this.
Okay. In Excel, folks, okay, mine's already up there, but you're going to want to tap on formulas because that's where we're going to go. And if yours is set up like mine, there's recent, financial, logical, text, and there's more. So I'm going to click on more because I'm looking for statistical functions.
Whoa.
And so right there in more functions, you'll see statistical. So I'm going to click on statistical functions. And it brings up a very long list. Now, what are we supposed to be finding?
Standard deviation.
Standard deviation. So you're going to scroll down to the S's. And when you get down there, you'll notice there's 2 standard deviations, or maybe 3. I think there's 3. We are looking for standard deviation of a population is what they have us find. So we're going to look for standard deviation .p. And we're going to click on that.
Mine won't let me click on it. Like you need to sign in.
You have to sign in. That's the problem I ran into the other night.
Gotcha. So,
You have to sign in to like OneDrive essentially, or
I'm signing in. Right up there.
okay.
So, like, you have it here.
And
So you tried clicking on it, no.
Oh, there.
don't ask me why, but there you go. Now you should be able to, because now not everything's grayed out.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. I can only relate because I had the same issue when I was, I do this once a year, so I had to go back in and remind myself, how do we do this?
Yeah.
So, okay, guys, you'll notice it's standard deviation.p, and basically what they're saying, number, comma, number, comma, number. So what you're going to do is you're just going to type in your list of numbers. Okay, order doesn't matter. So I'm just going to say 4, comma. Easiest thing for me to do is just type the numbers and put a comma. 12, comma. Where are we going next? 15, comma. 9, comma. And kind of watch what you type in. Make sure you don't miss any numbers. I'm going to quit talking out loud because everyone's going to be at different spots, right?
Yes.
Stop. We're going to quit talking out loud because everyone's at different spots.
shoot. Okay.
Once you get done typing in the numbers, you can just hit enter, return, and it will pop you back a number.
Ooh, 6.3134.
Now, you'll notice it pops you back basically whatever box you're in, which is probably you were in the first box. And you'll notice mine is 6.31343, which sounds familiar, so I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay. If your number does not match mine, my guess is user error, you forgot a comma, you typed a number wrong, you skipped a number. So if yours did not agree, go back and start checking your numbers and everything, make sure there's not a typo. Did we get it? No issues?
Yep.
We're hunting for issues? Unless you look like you're hunting for an issue.
Yeah, I'm looking for an issue.
Okay.
Did you put the
Did you use standard deviation.p?
Yep.
Okay. I know you got behind at that point, so okay, let me know if you can't find it.
Probably because
don't
Ian
click
freaking yelled at number.
You don't click on the box, you click on the word thing. Like the word text.
Alright, hold on. Okay. You give me a little bit.
You see, like the thing up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you type it. And then you
Oh wait, no. Oh, I see. Alright.
Okay. What I was writing up here is just, are you going to remember how to do this when you get to homework tonight or tomorrow? So we went to statistical formulas in Excel. We used standard deviation.p, and we typed the list of numbers with commas. And eventually, we got that standard deviation, sigma, was 6.31343. I will be honest and say I don't remember how Savas asked you to round, if they asked you to round. They very possibly asked you to round, because not every device is going to give you the same number of decimal places. So, okay.
Wait, so on the test it would just be the mean and the 5 numbers summary?
Just worry about that when we get there, okay?
Alright.
Just don't worry about it right now. Worry about learning how to do everything. That's what I need you to do right now. Okay. Are we all good on standard deviation? Did you get your
Yeah,
shoes
I
figured?
figured.
Okay, good. And here's the deal. The iPad is how I'm asking you to do standard deviation on homework. Okay, so that's why I'm making sure everyone knows what they're doing. That's why I asked you guys all to have iPads with you today, right? Okay, 5-number summary. First thing I want us to find on the 5-number summary is the median.
Median is 6.5.
No.
It's a function.
How do we find median? What is the median?
Oh, you list all the numbers and then you click the middle, the number in between. Or like the 2 numbers, you divide by 2,
Okay.
you add them.
So officially, median is the
Middle number.
middle number. What's the catch?
If there's 2 middle numbers, then you add both of them and you divide by 2.
Okay, what's another catch?
They have to be in order.
Numbers have to be in order. So what's the downfall of this problem? We got to put them in order, right?
So it's
Okay, so
16.
putting them in order. Where are we starting?
30.
And, mark them off, underline them, dot them, whatever you want to do. What's next? or 4. 6, 6, 7, 9, 12.
13, 13.
Are there 2 13s? Okay. 13, 13, 14,
15, 16, 17.
15, 16. I saw those. You say there's a 17 next? Yes.
22, 25.
22, 25. Now, I'd rather find a mistake before I go any farther. This is just a helpful tip. Ignore or not, whatever. But one thing I always like to do is, did I get all my numbers? How many numbers am I supposed to have?
16.
I'm supposed to have 16 according to my mean. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay. And crossing them off up there helps, yes? But you asked me for help in homework. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask to see or solve this problem to make sure that you have all the numbers written down. So, okay. So median. What are we doing for median then?
12, 13. The 2 and a half.
Okay, you're counting in to find the middle number. Basically, if you count in 8 from each way, right? You land between 12 and 13. What does that make my median?
12.5.
12.5. If it's one that makes sense to you, you can just ask yourself, what's the middle of 12 and 13? And the middle of 12 and 13 is 12.5. If it's one that's not so obvious, how do we mathematically do this?
Add the 2 together and divide by 6.
Yeah, 12 plus 13 divided by 2 ends up being 12.5. Old news, right? But we always need our good reminders. Okay. After I find my median, I'm going to go look for my quartiles. Now, your lower quartile, or your first quartile, the quartile, or the median of the bottom half of data. So basically, you use every number on the bottom half except the median. So in this scenario, we're going to use everything to the left of my blue line. Everything to the left of my blue line, where's the middle of the bottom half?
6.
Because it technically ends up what? Technically ends up between 6 and 6, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're using all those numbers. And what is in the middle of 6 and 6? 6. Now, if you want to argue that, my proof is 6 plus 6 divided by 2. Okay? So that math still works. 6 plus 6 divided by 2. You end up at 6.
Wait, so would there ever be a time where when you add them up and divide it by 2, it doesn't equal the numbers, just add it up?
If they're the same number, it's going to equal the same number.
So what's the point of like adding the extra step of adding and dividing by 2?
Because I occasionally get people that struggle to realize the middle of 6 and 6 is still 6.
Okay.
For instance, I had someone this morning tell me the middle of 6 and 6 was 6.5.
Oh.
It is, sometimes we have a moment, and the math doesn't math, okay? That's why. So here I'm giving you the, if you have a moment and the math isn't mathing, you know, do the math. Now, am I saying, here's, in all honesty, if I was finding these numbers, I would not have done the math on 6 or 12.5. I would have just looked down and known. So you don't have to do the math there, okay? And we need next, that was the first quartile, what else do I want you to find? Third quartile. Your second quartile is your median, technically.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But, so we're using all the numbers to the right of my median now. So everything from that 13 to 25. Where is my third quartile or upper quartile? Yeah. It falls in between 15 and 16. And this is one where I personally know the middle of 15 and 16 is 15.5. But Is it always that obvious? No, it's not sometimes.
12 and 48.
So even though this is an easy problem, I'm giving you the ways of how we do the math. Now, and what you'll notice here, we call it the first and third quartile. The median is the second quartile. That's the name you might hear it as. And what happens is these three places are dividing this data into 4 quarters. It's 4 equal groups. If you've done this correctly, notice 4 numbers, quartile, 4 numbers, median, 4 numbers, quartile, 4 numbers. Okay? Now, we have 3 numbers of our 5-number summary. What are the other 2 pieces we need? Minimum value. What's my minimum value? It is your lowest number, and so it is 3. And we need a maximum value. What's my maximum value? 25. Okay. When you're asked for your 5-number summary, they just want a list of numbers with commas. So like when you go into Savvis and they say, okay, find the 5-number summary, all we're going to list is, what's my 5 numbers? In order from least to greatest, 3, 6, 12.5, 15.5, and 25. So when you type it into Savvis, typing the numbers in order. Now, you put them out of order, I think Savvis is probably going to count you wrong. I don't think they let you put them in just any order, but I could be wrong on that. Okay, questions so far? I have one more thing on this before I move on, but
If you have an odd number,
we'll talk about it on the next one. Trust me, there's a reason. Yes, this is pretty basic. Do we really need a second example? Not necessarily, but I changed the amount of numbers, which will, so save your question for there. Okay, homework, to my knowledge, does not ask anything about box and whisker plots. However, most of you are saying, what the heck are you talking about? And here's the deal. While it's not necessarily one of my standards or anything, should we be familiar with box and whisker plots? We should. You should at least not be like, what are you talking about? Because if you see something pop up on a standardized test or something, I want you to be like, oh yeah, that's that one thing. And not be totally clueless. Fair enough? So a box and whisker plot is a box with a line at either end. Thus, a box and whiskers. It's based on this 5-number summary. It's based on these 5 data values. So I'm just going to draw one in this area I have right here. It requires a number line. So I'm going to draw a number line. And on this number line, I have to go at least as low as 3 and as high as 25. Personally, I've been counting by 2s. Puts me counting by odds, but it works. So I'm going to count from 3 to 25 by odds. So 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25. Okay? And in order to do a box and whisker plot, normally your box and whisker plot is either done right below a number line or right above a number line. Either or. And I'm going to put a dot for each point. So the minimum is 3. So I'm going to put a dot below 3. The first quartile is at 6. So I'm going to put a dot where 6 should be. The median is at 12.5. So between 11 and 13, closer to 13. 15.5, between 15 and 17, closer to 15. And 25. Okay, your box involves the middle 3 points. So your quartiles and your medians. You draw vertical lines through those and create the box. Your whiskers are these values out here. Okay, it's a box and whisker plot. Okay, what it does is it talks about the spread of data, which will make more sense as we get more into this lesson, because it talks about, okay, in the box is the middle half of my information. And then the fact that there were a lot of really low numbers. So they're really clumped over here. Where on the upper half, these numbers are really spread out. There weren't a lot of upper numbers. And the box and whisker plot is a visual way to see this. Okay? Now, will it ever pop up in your life? Not a clue, but you can at least say you've seen it. Okay? And as I said, I don't remember it being in homework, because the directions even tell me to make a box and whisker plot. No. That was an option I opted for. Okay? Okay. Other questions on this problem? Okay, you ready to try number 2? Starting over. Find the mean, or the standard deviation, and the 5-number summary. Let's do it. Mean. I'm not going to write anything out. I'm just going to wait for you guys to tell me the numbers.
311.
Huh?
311
She's ahead of me.
divided by 15. And it's like 20.73 repeating.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so double check yourself. Should be adding up to 311. There are 15 numbers if you count, so you are dividing by 15. I wrote my answer as 20.73 with a bar above the 3 because the 3 appears to be repeating. Keep in mind this is mean, so we could refer to this as X bar. And I know Savas would have rounding directions. Okay. We know how to do mean. Okay, guys, next up, standard deviation. So head back into Excel. Now, what is helpful if you want is instead of going into statistical this time, go into recent. And I'll show you what I mean here. So what you can do is you can either delete what was in that previous box or just you're in a new box. But like earlier I showed you more functions in statistical. Over here, you guys probably have recent. If you go into recent, here's the nice part. You have very few things in recent, right? So it's a little easier to find it there. Once you've used it once, you could find it in recent. And you're typing the numbers and putting in commas again, right?
11.263.
I don't remember right now. I'll look here in a moment.
11.263.
You need to start typing your numbers again, right? I don't know that I need to go all the way through mine.
Oh, there's the 1.
That's right. My iPad is so small.
What do we use to represent standard deviation? Lowercase sigma. So sigma I have it written down in my notes as 11.2633.
He is an extra 1 because he
331.
zoomed in.
331.
If you zoom in on Excel, it shows you extra numbers.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
like if you extend the box or whatever.
No, literally if you just zoom in.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'm just going for the basic view. And as I said, you guys know, Savas will tell you to round, right?
Mhm.
Did our standard deviation work okay? Okay? Let me know if you have problems. I will help you figure out the problems. As I said, you can also do this on the scientific calculator. And I'll try and demonstrate that sometime, but it's a little more tedious. Yeah, tedious is a good word. Okay, next. What's the good news?
These are already arranged in order.
Yeah. Don't count it always happening. But my numbers are already in order. Now, personally, because I want to work with my list of numbers, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the list of numbers down here. That's because I want to be able to write on them. So, 3, 4, 9, 12, 12, 14, 15, 19, 25, 30, 32, 33, 34, 34, 35. And again, I'm going to count and make sure I have the number of numbers just because I don't know, I get a little anal like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. Now, this kind of goes with where Zach was headed earlier in terms of, I changed the number of numbers up. That's really the main reason we're doing a second example. You got to practice standard deviation again, and we have a different number of base numbers here. So, with that in mind, what about the median?
25.
I count wrong.
19. It's 19.
19.
You're being overruled. Okay? If you count in 7 each way, it's going to be the 8th number in from each way. And it doesn't land between numbers this time, does it? Okay? It's the 8th number from that way and at 8th number from that way. Or, I don't know, the elementary way, what do you do? 3 and 35, 4 and 34, right?
That's valid.
Hey, it works, doesn't
That's kind
it?
of what I do in my head.
I mean, that's, Okay, you got your 19 issue figured out?
Would the quartile be like
Hold on.
33?
Okay, median, 19. We got that one figured out. Okay, after the median, you need to find your quartiles. Now, remember, last time my median was not a number in the list. And here's the general rule of thumb is to find your quartiles, you never want to use the median. Well, last time the median wasn't a number in the list, so it didn't matter. This time, the median is a number in the list. So you're using all the numbers to the left of the median, but you're not using the median. So we're using the numbers from 3 to 15 to find my median. Okay, because otherwise you have to include the median in both lists, and that you can't do that. So, with that information, what is my first quartile?
12.
Which 12? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's the 4th number in both ways. So, first quartile is indeed 12.
30.
Same thing on the right then. Use all the numbers except the median. So we're using the 25 to 35. So counting in,
33.
you end up at 33 for your third quartile. Okay? Now, take a brief moment and pause. Those 3 numbers should divide your data into 4 equal pieces. Did that happen? 3 numbers, quartile, 3 numbers, median, 3 numbers, quartile, 3 numbers. If done correctly, you have 4 equal pieces. Okay? What else do we need for our 5-number summary?
3 and 35.
You need your, why am I writing max? You need your minimum value of 3. And now you need your maximum value of 35. Okay? So, in Savas, if you are asked for the 5-number summary, you're going to list those 5 numbers in order. 3, 12, 19, 33, 35. Okay? Five number summary. Piece of cake. It's easy. You just have to know what to do in certain situations. Did I answer your question in there? Okay.
Yeah.
When you started talking about odd, I was like, let's wait. Now, I'm going to go ahead and throw a box and whisker plot on here. Because, just to get you guys, I'm going to label from 3 to 35. I'm going to do odds again. 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 31, 33, 35. What am I doing for this box and whisker plot?
Three.
We have a point at 3, 12, 19, 33, 35. Middle 3, the quartiles in your median, make your box. The median is just a line, a vertical line inside your box. The quartile to the min and max, make your whiskers. And again, this talks about the spread of the data. How is the data spread out? The fact that I have a really short whisker here, notice there were a whole bunch of numbers in the 30s, right? So you've got a whole bunch of numbers gapped together, grouped together here. This longer whisker, notice I don't have as many numbers down there, okay? Or not as clumped together. They're more spread out. So that whisker is a little bit longer. Okay? Okay. We're going to flip to the next page and just start to talk a little bit about what we're going to look at tomorrow. We're going to have to really move tomorrow, which I will say, these are the really long problems, but still. Tomorrow we're going to have to move. So we're going to talk tomorrow about how we talk about the shape, the center, and the spread of the data. Okay? I mentioned earlier the spread. Standard deviation, interquartile range, and range are the three measures of the spread of the data. You guys remember how to find range? Go back a few years.
Like the first number and the last minute max.
Yeah, it's basically the max value minus the min value, right? Subtract your end values. Well, interquartile range, we're actually going to use interquartile range a lot tomorrow. That is, instead of subtracting max and min, it's subtracting your quartiles. Okay, so that's the interquartile range. Now, we're going to talk tomorrow, stay with me for a moment, about a skewed distribution versus a symmetrical distribution. Skewed distribution is one with a shape that's stretched out in either the positive or negative direction. So, this normal curve down here in the middle, this represents a symmetrical distribution. As a shape, we're going to reflect it across the mean. Basically, the two halves are the same. Okay? This is your normal. This happens when mean, median, and mode are all pretty much the same. As opposed to the skewed ones, okay, where more data is either stretched out to the left or the right, depending on the scenario. Okay, we'll talk about those tomorrow. In symmetric, the mean, median, mode are about the same. And notice what it says here. Catch this, guys. In a symmetric distribution, what are we going to use? We're going to use the mean and the standard deviation. So we're not done finding those pieces of data. If it's a skewed distribution, instead, we're going to use the median and the interquartile range. And as I said, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Okay? So, if you take a peek at homework, the first 3 problems are like the 2 problems we did in class today.
Wait,
Past that, you're not ready to do homework. But you could look at the first 3. Huh?
How many